I was born a twin with Axel. I turned out to be a beta while Axel was an omega. I came into the world 1 minute later than him, and that 1 minute seemed to decide everything. In everything we did, I was always the one who lost to Axel. I was just an ordinary beta, and everyone only adored the beautiful omegas. Even the man I thought loved me deeply showed his true colors the moment Axel had an accident. He said to me, "If Axel's hand never heals, then yours should pay the same price." That's when I realized I had never been special. I was only a substitute for Axel. Heartbroken, I got into my car and drove away, not caring where the road would take me. Then came the crash. When I opened my eyes again, I had gone back in time, back to when I was 20. Welcome to Avenor BL, where words whisper love and hearts find warmth. You're listening to an original BL story, brought to life through voice and emotion. Let your heart rest, and let the story begin. I don't want to admit that my previous life was miserable. I was born into a middle-class family, with a twin brother. Before we turned 10, before our second gender appeared, I was cheerful and innocent. Our parents didn't play favorites, and my brother Axel and I got along quite well. When we were kids, my favorite game was switching places with Axel. We looked almost identical. Except for our parents, hardly anyone could tell us apart. Every time I pretended to be Axel, I could easily fool others. But after we differentiated, no one ever mistook us for each other again. Because I turned out to be an ordinary beta, while Axel became an omega. Maybe it was destined from birth that I would always be one step behind him. From then on, our lives took completely different paths. As a child, I didn't understand why our parents suddenly stopped liking me. They were still so kind to Axel. I tried crying and throwing tantrums just to get their attention. But all I got were looks of annoyance. "You're too old to cry all the time. Why can't you learn from your brother Axel? He's such a sweet and polite boy." To everyone else, Axel was gentle, elegant, and well-mannered. And I became the so-called troublemaker, the bad kid of the family. When others criticized me for no reason, my parents accepted it without question, saying it was their fault for not raising me well. I wanted to laugh. They never really raised me at all. To them, there was only Axel. When I was 12, they sent me to a boarding school. For the next 6 years, aside from the monthly allowance they sent, my parents barely spoke to me. Meanwhile, Axel stayed home, cherished and protected. All because I was just a beta, someone too ordinary to notice. Axel and I shared the same birthday. The first year after I was sent away, I tried everything I could to sneak back home. You skipped school? At your age? All I wanted was to spend our birthday together. It was my birthday too, after all. But the cake only had Axel's name on it. After that, I never celebrated my birthday again. Our parents had great hopes for Axel. And Axel didn't disappoint. He was talented, especially in piano. By 19, he already had some fame. By 22, he was admitted into a prestigious music academy. Our parents invested everything in him, hoping he would enter high society someday, and eventually bond with an outstanding alpha. Those who became alphas were gifted, destined to stand at the top of the world. No one expected that I, a beta, would be the first to date an alpha. And not just any alpha, but the heir of a powerful and traditional family. I dated Caleb Kingsley for 5 years. During those years, Caleb was gentle, patient, and caring. He filled the empty space inside me that had longed for love for so long. When I was sick in the middle of the night, he'd rush over through the rain and stay up all night to take care of me. Because of my lack of love growing up, I had a lot of emotional issues. Sometimes I'd get moody, but Caleb would always comfort me, telling me it wasn't my fault, that I was just tired or hurt. He'd spoil me, tolerate my bad temper, surprise me with little gifts, remember my habits and favorite things. There were so many moments like that. On our 5th anniversary, Caleb gave me an entire energy planet as a gift. He told me it had been renamed after me, and that from now on all the resources on that planet belonged to me alone. It was part of his family's assets. By transferring it to me, Caleb was making a public declaration. I was to be his future partner. An alpha being with a beta was already rare. But an heir to a noble house with a beta from a modest family? That was unheard of. The media loved the story. They praised our love, saying we were proof that romance could cross all boundaries. To me, Caleb was the perfect lover. Everyone said he must have loved me deeply. And of course, I believed it too. Until the accident happened. Axel fell down the stairs. The worst injury was to his hand, the one he used to play the piano. The doctor said it might affect his playing in the future. The moment Axel heard that, he broke down in tears. Omegas had a special kind of scent or hormone. Ever since he became one, his skin had grown fairer, softer, and somehow even more delicate than before. We used to look almost the same, but now his features seemed more refined, his beauty more striking. When he cried, he looked heartbreakingly fragile. And right then, in front of everyone, he turned to me and asked, "Did you push me down the stairs?" I said no, but no one believed me, because when he fell, I happened to be standing right behind him. No matter how many times I swore I was innocent, no one listened. Just one question from Axel, and everyone decided I was guilty. They said I'd always been jealous of him, that I'd bullied him before, that I was rotten to the core. My parents said if Axel was left with any lasting damage, I was no longer their son. And my childhood friends said, if Axel can never play piano again, I'll never forgive you. I could endure all the false accusations, all the blame, but I never expected Caleb to say this. If Axel's hand can't heal, then you don't deserve to keep yours either. That was when I realized Caleb had never loved me. He had always loved Axel. I wasn't even a replacement. I was just a tool he used to provoke Axel. Caleb had known Axel since high school. He'd fallen for him at first sight. As an alpha, confident and privileged, he never hid his affection. He had pursued Axel openly, but Axel said he wasn't ready for a relationship. So Caleb chose to wait, quietly, patiently. When Axel got accepted into the music academy, Caleb threw him a beautiful celebration party. And that night he confessed his feelings. He was sincere, but Axel turned him down. Their mutual friends all knew the story. They also knew Caleb only started dating me to get back at Axel. And yet, for 5 whole years, none of them ever slipped up in front of me. They all played along with Caleb's lie, while I, like a fool, believed every word. Even Axel, who knew how Caleb felt about him, never said a single thing to me. I really thought I'd found true love. I gave him everything, heart and soul. And maybe they all laughed behind my back. When I found out the truth, I was devastated. I drove away in a daze and crashed. The car broke through the seaside barrier and plunged into the ocean. When I opened my eyes again, I had come back to life, back to when I was 20. My fingers trembled as I held the phone. My heart was pounding and a chill spread through my body. For me, the fear of being swallowed by the sea had happened only a second ago. I sat on the bed for a long time before I finally calmed down. The mattress beneath me was soft and comfortable. I could feel the cool air from the air conditioner brushing against my skin. Everything felt real. This wasn't a dream. I really had been reborn. The room before my eyes looked both familiar and strange. It was the guest room in Simon's house. Simon was a mutual friend of mine and Axel's. We'd grown up together, childhood friends, really. Simon was also the first person I ever had a crush on when I was young and naive. The reason I fell for him was rather cliché. I once got lost when I was in elementary school, and it was Simon who found me. After that, I stuck to him like glue. Over time, that dependence grew into something deeper. Later, when I differentiated into a beta and was ignored by everyone, I clung to Simon even more. At boarding school, we only had one short break each month, 2 days at most. My parents never liked having me home, so I usually stayed at Simon's place instead. The room I slept in was this one. I used to naively believe Simon was different from the rest. Until that one day when I skipped class because I wasn't feeling well. I hadn't told him I was coming over. Maybe some things are just destined. That day, the front door of his house wasn't fully closed. And I overheard Simon saying to Axel, "Why can't you be a little clingy with me, like Nero is?" Axel answered softly, "That's because you once saved him when we were kids." Simon sighed, sounding helpless. "That's always been a misunderstanding." Axel asked, "What do you mean?" Simon replied, "I used to mix you two up all the time when we were little. Actually, that day I thought Nero was you." He said if he'd known it was me who'd gone missing, he wouldn't have been so worried. Standing behind the door, I felt as if lightning had struck me. It was in that moment I realized what my feelings for Simon truly were. But the instant I realized it, those feelings were crushed. Yesterday was Simon's birthday. I remembered that in my previous life, Caleb had brought me here. Caleb and Simon were high school classmates. Back then, I thought they were just close friends. But now I know, Caleb had probably come hoping to see Axel. So when I saw those two familiar figures standing in the backyard, I wasn't surprised at all. Both Caleb and Axel had their backs to me. "Why didn't you come last night?" Caleb's tone toward Axel was so much gentler than it ever was with me. Axel answered quietly, "There were too many alphas around. I didn't think it'd be appropriate. With me here, what's there to be afraid of?" Caleb's arrogant tone almost made me laugh. Axel gave a mild, understanding smile. "You're dating my brother now. You should treat him more seriously." Caleb quickly protested. "You know exactly why I'm with him. Are you trying to provoke me on purpose?" In my previous life, I hadn't woken up this early. When I did wake up, near noon, Caleb was beside me, asking tenderly if I felt unwell. I had to admit, Caleb was impressive. After fawning over his beloved first love early in the morning, he could still turn around and act deeply devoted to me. Dying once had changed my perspective on many things. Looking back at my pathetic, short previous life, my biggest regret was that I'd never lived for myself. Now that life had given me another chance, I wasn't going to waste another second on people who didn't deserve it. "If being with me makes you so miserable," I said coldly, "then let's break up." I was never the type to hold things in. Besides, breaking up with Caleb was the very first thing I'd planned to do after being reborn. "Nero, you're awake?" Caleb turned around, a flicker of panic in his eyes. Even Axel's back seemed to tense. I repeated my words, that we were over, and walked away without looking back. When I got home, my parents looked startled to see me. In my past life, after moving in with Caleb, I hadn't returned home for nearly 4 years. There were guests in the house. When I saw Aaron and his parents, I froze for a moment. The Aarons had once lived next door. Our parents had been close, always visiting each other, until they moved away and contact faded. Aaron was 3 years older than me. He hadn't shown any signs of differentiation until he was 23. He was classified as a beta, but behind closed doors, people whispered that he was defective. Aaron was tall, almost 6'3", with striking, handsome features. He excelled at everything: academics, sports, you name it. A perfect man by any standard, yet unrecognized simply because he hadn't differentiated. On the surface, my parents praised him in front of his family, but behind their backs, they looked down on him. They knew Axel liked Aaron, so they did everything they could to keep them apart. Later, Aaron became one of the most sought-after officers in the Interstellar Alliance. My parents regretted it bitterly. They tried to reconnect with him, only to realize they had no way of reaching him. In my previous life, Aaron and I hadn't interacted much. He was the only person, besides my parents, who could tell me and Axel apart even before we differentiated. Every time I tried to fool him by pretending to be Axel, he'd see through it immediately, Call me childish with that smug, older tone. He was only 7 then, yet he already acted so mature. He was distant, sharp-tongued, and loved putting me in my place. He always made me feel defeated. I thought he disliked me, so naturally, I disliked him too. In my last life, I never paid attention to his whereabouts. I didn't know when his family moved away, or when he joined the military. Not until he rose to fame after a major battle, where he differentiated at last, becoming an alpha with an exceptionally high pheromone level. In the years that followed, Aaron's achievements in both military and political fields skyrocketed. He became a household name throughout the alliance. I couldn't avoid hearing about him even if I tried. Rumor had it that people were lining up, just for the chance to propose marriage to him. My parents were among them. Since they couldn't reach Aaron directly, they turned to me, hoping I could use Caleb's network to make contact. It was around that time that I found out. Axel had been secretly in love with Aaron all along. I even remember laughing about it, telling Caleb as if it were a joke. Thinking back now, the moment Caleb heard Axel had feelings for Aaron, something in his expression shifted subtly, but definitely. And I, being a fool, thought he was just tired. The moment I looked up, my eyes met Aaron's. His gaze was dark, like staring into a bottomless abyss. Felt like he had been watching me ever since I walked in. Back already, Nero? It was Aaron's mother who spoke first, breaking the silence. My parents had no choice but to acknowledge me after that. Where's Caleb? Didn't he come back with you? Of course, to them, even a guest mattered more than I did. I walked straight over and sat beside Aaron, smiling politely. So, Aaron, you're serving in the military now, right? On my way home, I'd been thinking about what I wanted to do with my life, and I'd already made up my mind. I wanted to get away from all these people completely. Joining the army would be my best option. In our world, Omegas can't serve on the front lines. Their pheromones during their heat cycles can disrupt alphas on the battlefield. That made it strictly forbidden for Omegas to hold any military or political position. That meant this was one world Axel could never enter. And if I left that world behind, maybe everyone else would disappear from my life too. Aaron, I said, could you recommend me for enlistment? I heard each soldier gets 1 nomination slot a year. For a beta like me, joining the Interstellar Alliance Army was nearly impossible. You had to either pass the military academy exams, or be outstanding enough to earn a place. I'd missed that chance long ago. But now there was a shortcut standing right in front of me. I couldn't be sure Aaron would agree, but I had to try. You're serious? Aaron asked, his tone calm but his eyes sharp. That single question made my heart leap with hope. The Aaron in front of me was so different from the one I remembered. In my previous life, I'd only seen him on TV or in the news. Always in uniform, stoic, distant, untouchable. He had become the youngest colonel in the Alliance. A man ordinary people could never reach. But this Aaron, this one still felt human. Everyone was underestimating him. Of course I'm serious. My mother's angry voice cut me off. What nonsense are you talking about? I knew they didn't actually care whether I joined the army. They were only afraid I'd lose Caleb, their perfect son-in-law prospect. They'd never once cared about what I wanted. But this time I wasn't the same as before. In your eyes, I've always been the bad kid, haven't I? I said quietly. Worried I'll scare off your precious Caleb? You don't have to. Just tell your perfect son to go be with the one he really likes. Axel. What are you talking about? Axel's voice came from behind me, sharp and panicked. I turned and saw him standing there, with Caleb right beside him. Axel rarely lost his composure like that. He must have been afraid Aaron would misunderstand. Caleb frowned. Nero, you've got it wrong. Oh really? I'm wrong? I smiled carelessly and looked back at Aaron. Anyway, I'll wait for your answer. Aaron only gave a short Caleb suddenly grabbed my wrist. Nero, come with me. We need to talk. He pulled me out onto the balcony. I yanked my hand free. What do you want to say? Nero, it's not what you think. Oh? Then what is it? I said flatly. You mean you don't like Axel? Caleb fell silent. I smiled faintly. Then why not just let me help you out? He clicked his tongue, frustrated. Can you stop being unreasonable for once? I gave a short laugh. Guess I hit a nerve, huh? Nero. Before he could finish, the balcony door slid open. Aaron stepped out, calm and composed, a cigarette between his fingers. Mind if I smoke? He said casually. Caleb's irritation vanished in an instant, replaced by awkwardness. I didn't know whether Aaron did it on purpose or not. But right then, he looked effortlessly cool. From their conversation later, I learned that Aaron's family was moving away tomorrow. That's why my parents had invited them for dinner tonight, to say goodbye. I knew they didn't want me to stay for dinner, so I packed my things, ready to leave. The meteorite diamond bracelet in my hand pressed painfully into my palm. It had been a birthday gift I'd planned for Caleb. Just like in my previous life. Somehow, the delivery had been sent to my parents' house, and I'd secretly come back to take it. But this time, there was no way I'd give it to him. It couldn't be returned either, and it had cost me nearly everything I'd saved. I'd really been such a fool. Dragging my suitcase through the living room, I saw everyone already seated for dinner, except Aaron, who was still on the couch. Aaron's parents tried to say something, but my parents quickly cut them off. Then Aaron stood up, looking straight at me. Not joining us for dinner? He asked. For a second, I froze. I thought I was used to being ignored. But hearing that, somehow it hurt. Even my supposed boyfriend, Caleb, hadn't looked my way once. And yet Aaron, the one who'd always seemed to dislike me, was the only one who asked. In front of everyone, I took out a velvet box and placed it before him. Aaron, this is for you. He looked up, surprised. I smiled. And I'll be counting on your help. He opened the black velvet box. The meteorite bracelet glittered under the dining room light. Caleb and Axel's faces instantly turned sour. After I left, Axel whispered, Aren't you going after him? Caleb shrugged. I've spoiled him too much already. He's just throwing a tantrum. He was so sure, so confident, that I'd come crawling back to him in a few days. Meanwhile, Aaron quietly returned to his seat beside his parents. Caleb's gaze flicked to the velvet box on the table. He gave a cold laugh. You're really keeping that? It was meant for me. Aaron looked at him calmly. Caleb chuckled. That bracelet was supposed to be my birthday gift. In my past life, I told Caleb everything, including that gift. Aaron's expression didn't change. Do you want it back? Caleb froze. What? Of course not. I could buy a dozen of those if I wanted. Oh? Aaron's tone was mild. He opened the box again, took out the bracelet, and slipped it onto his wrist. Then he said quietly, Then why are you so mad? Because you can't have this exact one? Caleb's face went pale. 2 days later, Aaron contacted me. He'd already arranged my enlistment. I hadn't expected him to move that fast. The nomination was made public. And even though I didn't yet know Aaron's true standing in the army, I knew that within a year, everyone would be desperate to be on his good side. For me, being his recommendation would mean everything. The new recruit training was brutal, but I had no other choice. If I wanted to change my fate, I had to endure it all. I never saw Aaron during those early weeks, but I heard his name everywhere. People said the unawakened beta, who rose so high, must have cheated his way up. Some alphas couldn't handle it, and since they couldn't touch him, they came after me instead. They cornered me in the restroom, calling me a worthless beta who only got in through connections. I could take the insults, but when they called Aaron a cripple, that I couldn't forgive. I didn't care what they said about me, but I wouldn't let them talk about him that way. Before I knew it, I'd thrown myself at them, fists flying. A beta like me stood no chance against several alphas. Within seconds, I was on the ground, fists and boots raining down on me. Pain shot through my ribs and back. The taste of blood filled my mouth. I was about to black out. when the locked restroom door suddenly burst open. Someone yanked the alphas off me, one by one. The dull thud of punches followed, heavy, precise, unrelenting. Through my blurry vision, I saw a tall, broad figure standing over me, knocking them all down with ease. So reckless, a deep voice said above me. And that was the last thing I heard before the darkness took over. When I woke up, I was lying inside a medical capsule. All the wounds on my body had already been healed. Treatment pods like this cost a fortune. People usually only use them for life-threatening injuries. So unless you're on the brink of death, no one would ever choose it. Aaron was standing right outside. The moment he saw me open my eyes, he pressed the control and released the door. So, he was the one who saved me. I slowly sat up, my voice still hoarse. "Hey, Aaron, I can't pay you back for this anytime soon." He handed me a pouch of nutrient solution. "Why did you have to pick a fight with them? When you don't have the strength yet, you should learn when to back down." I sipped the nutrient drink and gave a helpless smile. "Even if I backed down, do you think they'd really let me go?" "It would have saved you from a few punches," he replied, completely serious. I couldn't help but laugh. "Aaron, have you ever been ganged up on before?" His expression didn't even twitch. "All the time." My eyes widened. "Even now?" "In the military, that's nothing unusual," he said calmly. I sighed. Guess being too good isn't always a blessing. Makes people jealous. The corners of Aaron's lips curved, just slightly. The smile was faint, there and gone in a second. But in that fleeting moment, my heart skipped a beat. Aaron really was handsome. So handsome that even though he hadn't presented, and some people secretly mocked him as incomplete, his popularity among the Omegas was still surprisingly high. He had that kind of face that could easily make people lose themselves. So no, I refused to believe my heartbeat meant anything more than surprise. Still, maybe it was just my imagination, but after that day I started running into Aaron more often. "Hey, Aaron." Every time, I'd be the one to greet him first. Aaron was naturally quiet, and most of the time he'd just nod in response. Maybe say a few words if he was in the mood. My roommate once teased me, "You're being awfully friendly with Captain Aaron. Planning to join his squad or what?" After rookie training, everyone had to choose which unit to join. Compared to the Alpha-led squads, Aaron's team had the highest number of volunteers. My test scores were in the top 3, so I had the privilege to pick first. Of course, I chose Aaron's squad. I was confident he'd approve my application. But to my surprise, he rejected it. "Aaron, why won't you let me in your team? You think I'm not good enough?" With my results, there was no reason for him to say no. "I already put in a request for you to join another unit," he replied, avoiding my question. I didn't understand his reason, and I had no right to press him for one. So, in the end, I joined the team he'd chosen for me. My efforts to get closer to him looked like bootlicking to others. People whispered behind my back. Maybe Aaron didn't want me following him around either. He'd already done more than enough for me, so I decided to give him space. When rookie training ended, our communication devices were finally unlocked. Not long after, Caleb called me. "So, you're really planning to stay in the army for good?" I didn't answer. He kept talking, his tone full of false concern. "Nero, don't do something you'll regret just to spite me." I gave a short, bitter laugh and hung up. Then I blocked his number. Soon after, I started my mech simulation classes. It was only after getting into it that I realized how hard it actually was to control a mech. Alphas had stronger mental power than betas, so they naturally had an edge in piloting. The higher the mech's level, the harder it was to control. Aaron became famous from a single battle, not just because he turned the tide on his own and won, but because the mech he used back then was only a Class C, and it was already half destroyed when he fought. After the battle, that machine was completely scrapped. It was supposed to be an unwinnable fight, and yet he won. That's why people called him a legend. His broken mech was even placed in the war museum. But the battlefield isn't a game. Before rookies like us could even set foot there, we had to pass countless tests. The most important one was the mech simulation exam. Unfortunately, that was my weakest point. I thought my controls were fine, but my results always hovered just above the passing line. My captain was kind and patient, but I could tell he was a little disappointed. He said to me, "Nero, if your final exam doesn't go well, you might get transferred to logistics." But I didn't join the army to stay behind a desk. I wanted to fight, to earn my future through merit. So that thought scared me. The more anxious I got, the worse I performed. One day, when I was feeling completely hopeless, my terminal buzzed with a message from my captain. It was a video. I opened it and found clips of my simulation battles. Each mistake and weak point highlighted and explained, with detailed notes on how to improve. That video changed everything for me. In my next simulation, my score jumped up significantly. Overjoyed, I rushed to thank my captain. But he said, "If you're going to thank someone, thank Captain Aaron instead." I froze. Aaron had made that video? My heart suddenly felt complicated. I couldn't even explain why. Still, I grabbed a basket of fruit and went to find him. We'd met so many times before, but for some reason, my palms were sweaty this time. The moment I saw him, my mind went completely blank. I opened my mouth but could only manage a single word. I? Aaron lowered his gaze slightly, his eyes flicking toward the fruit basket in my hands. "Here to thank me?" I nodded quickly. He asked, "How did you do on your latest test?" "Got a B+ this time," I said proudly. Aaron's lips curved faintly. "I stayed up 2 nights making that video. You think a fruit basket's enough to cover that?" I grinned. "Then what do you want, Aaron? Anything I can buy, just name it." He tilted his head slightly. "Buy me dinner." "Dinner? Oh, sure." I thought he meant something fancy, but he just said, "The cafeteria's fine." While we were walking there, a call came through from an unknown number. I picked up, confused. "I'm seeing someone new now," said the voice on the other end. I rolled my eyes. "Good for you. If you come back now, I might still give you another chance." The arrogance in Caleb's voice made me want to hang up immediately. Where did he even get that kind of confidence? Did he really think his so-called chance was something I'd beg for? I'd already blocked him once, and now he had the nerve to call me from a new number? What's wrong? Still haven't managed to win Axel over? He sneered. My tone turned sharp. "You really don't get tired of this, do you?" Before he could reply, I hung up again, and blocked that number too. Aaron glanced at me. "Ex-boyfriend?" Yeah, I admitted awkwardly. "You over him?" I smiled faintly. "Anyone who doesn't love me isn't worth holding on to." Aaron said nothing after that. I thought he didn't care, so I quickly changed the subject. From then on, whenever I hit a wall during training, I'd shamelessly ask Aaron for help. Fortunately, he never turned me down. Every time I'd treat him to a meal in return. And the more time I spent with him, the more I realized Aaron wasn't as cold as he seemed. Underneath that calm exterior, he was actually incredibly kind. The first real battle I ever took part in was a small one. Originally, only our squad was assigned to it, but when we set out, Aaron came along as well. Our great Captain Aaron, joining such a tiny mission? My captain laughed and gave me a teasing glance. I tried not to think too much of it, but still my face grew hot and my heart skipped a beat. Aaron didn't show any reaction. "Orders from above. I'm here to back you up." My captain raised an eyebrow. "They don't trust me?" Aaron answered without emotion, "Apparently not." The captain flipped him off with a grin. "One of these days I'm gonna expose you, you know." The swarm we faced wasn't large, but the real battlefield was nothing like a simulation. My blood surged with adrenaline. It was the first time I'd ever felt so alive. In my last life, when I sank into the ocean, I had only felt despair and fear. But now, I'd learned to fight like I had nothing to lose. Throughout the battle, Aaron was never far from me. It almost felt like he was there to protect me. Maybe because he'd been the one teaching me how to pilot. Our teamwork was seamless. When the fight ended, I had a few minor injuries. Aaron handed me a cooling treatment pack. "You did well today." My hand froze midair, and my heartbeat sped up again. His praise made me happier than the victory itself. Aaron also joined the next 2 battles after that. During training breaks, one of my teammates teased, "So, what's going on between you and Captain Aaron?" "We're neighbors," I said quickly. I heard lots of people asked him for recommendations before, and he turned everyone down. You're the only one he agreed to recruit. Maybe he just sees me as a younger brother, I tried to joke. My teammate nudged me playfully. Sure, if that's what you want to believe. Before you joined our team, he personally spoke to our captain about you. And come on, for missions like these, 1 squad's enough. He probably came along 'cause he was worried about you. His words sent ripples through my heart. Maybe the first time was just official orders, but after that, there was no reason for him to be there. With his skills, he didn't need these small fights to build his record. I didn't want to be self-delusional, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Somewhere along the way, my feelings for Aaron had changed. I didn't know when it began, but I found myself paying attention to him more and more, my chest tightening whenever I saw him. I had fallen for him, but I couldn't let this feeling grow. In the future, Aaron would stand at the top, a leader admired by all. His partner would surely be an exceptional Omega, and I would never be someone who belonged in his world. One day, when I started keeping my distance again, Aaron stopped me in the hallway. "Why are you avoiding me?" I froze. I hadn't expected him to notice, let alone ask. "I've just been busy," I mumbled. "I heard your schedule. You only train in the mornings." He cut through my excuse instantly. "Aaron, did you need something?" I tried to change the subject. "Can't I come see you without a reason?" His tone was calm, but something in it felt off, like quiet frustration. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "Why are you apologizing?" "Because you sound upset." He blinked, surprised. "I was actually wondering if I did something to upset you." That caught me off guard. Why would he think that? Why would he even care? Before I could answer, he handed me a small data chip. "What's this?" "The ownership file for an Energy Star," he said. I stared blankly. "An Energy Star?" "The one that should have belonged to you." When I inserted it into my terminal, the identification number was identical to the one Caleb had once given me. My mind went blank. Was that a coincidence? But isn't this resource owned by the Kingsley family? "They were investigated for corruption," Aaron said evenly. "A lot of their assets were seized. I bought this one at auction. That must have been incredibly expensive." "Not too bad." I didn't believe that for a second. My heart trembled as I asked, "Why would you give me something so valuable?" "You gave me the meteorite bracelet, didn't you?" He lifted his wrist, and the bracelet shimmered faintly beneath his sleeve. I'd noticed he wore it every day. "But they're not even close in value," I protested, looking away in embarrassment. I'd only given him that bracelet out of spite, trying to get back at Caleb. "Then think of this as a gift in return," he said gently. "But you didn't do anything wrong." "Then why were you avoiding me?" "Because I couldn't hide my feelings anymore." But that wasn't something I could say aloud. He must have sensed my silence and shifted the topic. "You don't seem curious why the Kingsleys were investigated." "Why should I be?" I asked, confused. He gave a small, knowing smile. "Good. Better that you're not." Soon after, Aaron's legendary battle took place, the one that would change his life forever. Right before it, I was sent to a month-long special training program. I had no choice but to go. I knew he would win, he always did, But I couldn't stop worrying about him. The training was completely isolated. No outside news came in. So I threw myself into the drills, pushing harder than ever before. By the time it ended, the news had already exploded everywhere. Aaron had returned victorious. But he was also badly injured. They said his body had healed, but complications from his presentation left him in a coma. I knew he would survive, but I still couldn't stay away. That night, I slipped quietly into his hospital room, just to see him once. After this, he'd leave the army for politics. Soon, I'd only see him on screens like everyone else. I told myself I'd just take one look. But when I saw him lying there, pale and still, tears spilled down my face before I could stop them. My hand trembled as I brushed his cheek, and suddenly his eyes opened. I froze. Aaron's hand caught mine, firm, steady, and burning hot. Our gazes locked, and 1,000 words I could never say filled the silence. The next morning, I woke up in his arms. When I looked up, his expression was unreadable. A mix of regret, confusion, and something deeper. "What happened last night," he said quietly, "wasn't intentional. It was instinct." My chest ached. I forced a smile. "It's okay. Let's just forget it happened." He was silent for a moment, then said, "But it did happen, and I'll take responsibility." "I don't want you to feel pressured," I whispered. "I'd never use this to trap you." Tears filled my eyes before I even realized it. Aaron pulled me into his arms. "Nero, you misunderstand," he said softly. "When I said it wasn't intentional, I didn't mean to make excuses. I just regret that your first experience with me wasn't gentle." His voice deepened, steady and sure. "I like you, Nero. I always have. And if you'll let me, I'll stay by your side." My mind went blank. My cheeks burned. And for the first time, I let myself believe him. You like me?" I stared at him, disbelief written all over my face. "I've liked you for a long time," Aaron said with a quiet laugh. It was the first time I'd ever seen him smile so openly. "That's impossible. You're lying." I still couldn't bring myself to believe it. "Do you know why I never let you join my squad?" I frowned, confused by the sudden change of topic, but still asked, "Why?" "Because I knew I'd have to go through that major battle. I knew I'd win, but I was afraid that if you came with me, something might change." The strange way he said it made a thought flash through my mind, a wild, impossible thought. My eyes widened and I unconsciously grabbed his hand. Aaron gently squeezed back, his tone steady. "I wasn't afraid of losing. I was afraid of not being able to protect you. If anything happened to you again, I'd never forgive myself." "Then you—" "Yes," Aaron interrupted softly, as if already knowing what I was about to say. "I've lived 2 lives too." I froze in shock. You also came back? You died once too?" "Maybe heaven took pity on me," he said with a faint smile. "What do you mean?" No matter how many times I asked, he wouldn't explain. "You really have liked me for that long?" I pressed. "There's no reason for me to lie to you," he said. "But in our previous life we barely even talked." "That's because you didn't want to. I was always paying attention to you." My face turned bright red again. "Then, why didn't you ever tell me?" Before I differentiated, people called me disabled. I never felt like I could compete with Caleb. Besides, I thought you loved him, so I just wanted you to be happy. Turns out we were the same, both doubting ourselves, both thinking we weren't enough. "I thought you hated me," I whispered. "I liked you," he said simply. How could someone confess so directly, so effortlessly, and sound so sincere? "Nero," Aaron said, his voice low and steady, "I've already marked you. You'll marry me, won't you?" Betas couldn't be marked. Aaron knew that perfectly well, he said it on purpose. My cheeks burned. Under his gaze, I slowly nodded. "I will." When news of our engagement came out, it caused an uproar. Aaron, the rising star of the military and political world, announcing his marriage, it broke the hearts of countless Omegas. and I became the subject of endless discussion. I thought people would attack me, but instead, I received more blessings than I ever expected. My parents couldn't believe it. They bombarded me with calls. Nero, cancel that engagement right now. Axel is falling apart because of what you've done. My father's tone was full of accusation. I almost laughed. So because Axel was upset, I was supposed to give up my own happiness? Nero, be reasonable. Aaron belongs with Axel. An alpha and an omega, that's what's right. Aaron is a person, not a prize to be given away. How can you steal someone your brother loves? My mother said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I didn't even have the strength to argue anymore. Aaron took the calm from me. Ma'am, if you have something to say about us, say it to me directly from now on. His tone was calm, but there was undeniable authority behind it. My mother faltered. Aaron, I didn't mean it that way. I'm just saying it for your own good. You and a beta, how could that even work? And Axel truly loves you. He's an omega. You'd be perfect together. Aaron cut her off smoothly. I know who's right for me. And just so you know, I was the one who asked Nero to marry me. Impossible. Axel's tear-streaked face appeared on the screen. He's just a beta. How could you possibly fall for him? It has nothing to do with whether he's a beta or an omega, Aaron said evenly. It's because he's Nero. Axel broke down completely. You can't do this to me, Aaron. I've loved you since we were kids. I turned down everyone because I was waiting for you. How can you choose him over me? Your feelings are your own, Aaron said coldly. They have nothing to do with me. Then he hung up. I thought Axel would finally give up, but instead he showed up at Aaron's base, causing a scene so dramatic it hit the news. With our nearly identical faces, it sparked all kinds of misunderstandings. I loved him so much. How could he betray me like this? Axel cried to reporters, playing the victim. People thought Aaron had abandoned him for someone else. Aaron didn't bother explaining. He simply appeared in public with me, walking side by side. That was enough. The rumors collapsed on their own. Everyone soon learned that Axel was my twin brother. Public opinion flipped instantly. The brother trying to steal his twin's fiancée became the target of every headline. Then someone exposed how my parents had always favored Axel and neglected me. The three of them were torn apart by public outrage. Aaron was a national hero, deeply loved by the people of the Alliance. And as his future spouse, I was naturally supported and protected too. Eventually, my parents and Axel had to leave the Alliance entirely. When everything calmed down, I asked Aaron, why did you fall for me? Because deep down I still felt insecure. People said alphas were naturally drawn to omegas. Even though Aaron and I were about to be married, I sometimes doubted whether I truly deserved him. Aaron must have noticed my unease. He smiled gently and kissed me on the lips. Nero, have you ever wondered why only the two of us were reborn? I shook my head. No, I never thought about it. He chuckled softly. Because we were meant to be part of the same world, no matter what we are. The day before our wedding, I got a call from Caleb. I thought he was calling to provoke me again, but instead he said, "Are you happy now?" "Of course," I replied. There was a long silence on the line, so long that I thought he'd hung up. Then he whispered, "I'm glad you are." Was there something else? I asked, puzzled. No, I just wanted to send you a wedding gift. That's not necessary, I said quickly. Please, just let me send you one last thing. Really, there's no need. I didn't want Aaron to be upset because of anything from Caleb. If that's all, I'm hanging up. Wait. I paused, my thumb hovering over the disconnect button. I'm sorry, Nero, Caleb said, his voice trembling. I was a fool. I didn't understand my own feelings, and I lost you. I know it's too late, but I just want you to have this gift. It's something I planned to give you long ago. Before I could respond, he hung up. Caleb was now the head of the Kingsley family, a family that had been under heavy investigation by the Alliance for over a year. Their corruption was finally exposed, and the entire house fell from grace. Turned out Aaron was the one who'd pushed for that investigation. In our previous life, after I died, he hadn't spared Caleb either. This time, he'd simply acted sooner. The Kingsleys were corrupt, Aaron said. It was only a matter of time. He admitted that in our last life he'd been far harsher, destroying them completely. This time he went easier on them only because I'd left Caleb early on. He said he just wanted to settle the score for me. In the end, I never found out what Caleb's gift was. Aaron intercepted it before it could reach me. And whatever it was, it disappeared. On our wedding day, I stood before this man, the man who'd walked through 2 lifetimes with me. And for some reason, I remembered one of his old interviews. The host had asked if there was someone he liked. He'd said yes. For a long time afterward, people speculated endlessly about who could have captured the heart of the famously cold commander. No one ever found out. Who could have imagined? That person would be me? Extra story: Aaron's childhood. Aaron's neighbors were a pair of twins. The older brother was quiet and well-behaved, while the younger one was loud and restless. Aaron was an only child. Both of his parents were highly educated and had strict expectations for him. Because of that, he grew up faster than most kids, too mature for his age. That early maturity made him different, distant. It was hard for him to fit in. Children's worlds are simple. If you play together, you're friends. If you don't, then you aren't. So Aaron never really had any friends when he was little. Except for Nero, who always came running to find him. Sometimes Nero would show off his silly little toys. Other times, he'd pretend to be Axel, trying to fool Aaron. Aaron could never understand why others couldn't tell the twins apart. To him, they looked completely different. Every time Nero tried to trick him, Aaron would see through it right away. And then Nero would pout in frustration, only to show up again the next day, full of energy, as if nothing had happened. He was loud, naive, endlessly curious. At first, Aaron thought the kid was unbearably noisy. But over time, he got used to it. He even started to enjoy teasing Nero, calling him the childish one, and found it oddly satisfying whenever Nero got flustered. Nero was the only playmate Aaron had as a child, though that was a secret he never told anyone. When Nero's parents came over to chat with they never bothered to hide their real opinions. Aaron learned early on that Nero's parents cared far too much about social status and gender roles. So when Nero later turned out to be a beta and faced their coldness, Aaron wasn't surprised. He just didn't have the right or the power to comfort him. As they grew older, Nero stopped coming by. Aaron was quiet and reserved by nature. When Nero stopped reaching out, he didn't chase after him either. Their bond simply faded away. When Nero was 12, his parents sent him off to a boarding school. Aaron visited once. The conditions were modest. He remembered feeling a tightness in his chest. But he was just a kid, he couldn't do anything about it. At the time, he didn't understand why Nero's situation upset him so much. Aaron didn't experience his own differentiation until he was 19. He was classified as a beta, and he quietly accepted that label, believing something about him must be broken. He endured the stares, the whispers. Those years weren't easy. But his strong will turned that pain into something else. The kind of resilience that later defined him. Axel once confessed to him, after getting into a music academy. Aaron hadn't differentiated yet back then, so he couldn't sense pheromones. That was the only time he ever mistook Axel for Nero. Later, he realized he hadn't actually mistaken him. He just wanted to believe the one confessing was Nero. He thought Nero was happy with Caleb. Until the day he heard Nero had fallen into the sea and died. They searched for 2 days before giving up. Aaron didn't. He hired a private salvage team and kept paying them, refusing to stop even when there was almost no hope. Nero's death broke something in him. He couldn't bear the thought that Nero's soul might be lost, wandering. Aaron had never been one to believe in gods or fate. But for Nero's sake, he prayed anyway. He knelt before every shrine he could find, climbing thousands of stone steps, whispering the same wish each time. Please let me find him. But instead of finding Nero's body, Aaron lost consciousness one night. And when he opened his eyes again, he was back in the past. The moment he saw Nero again, alive, breathing, smiling, Aaron made a silent vow. This time, no one would take Nero away from him ever again.
The story ends here. Below are my thoughts and comments on it. And that was Nero's story, a story of betrayal, rebirth, and the quiet kind of courage that comes from finally choosing yourself. What struck me the most was how real his emotions felt. He wasn't the perfect hero. He was broken, bitter, even naive. But that's what made him human. The author didn't give us a typical revenge fantasy. Instead, we got something slower, more personal, a journey of self-worth. I love how the rebirth isn't treated like a miracle fix. Even after turning back time, Nero still feels pain, still doubts himself. But this time, he learns to face it. And that moment when he stands up to Caleb and walks away? That's not just a breakup. That's liberation. But if I had to nitpick, maybe the pacing in the middle could have been tighter. Some scenes lingered a bit too long, while I wished for more time exploring Aaron's thoughts. He's such a mysterious presence, strong, calm, unreadable. Yet you can sense how deeply he cares. Overall, though, this story balances angst and tenderness beautifully. It reminds us that love isn't just about passion or destiny. Sometimes it's about respect and growth. So tell me, what do you think? Did Nero truly move on from Caleb? Or is a part of him still haunted by the past? And do you think Aaron's feelings are already there? Or is it just admiration for now? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. Thank you for listening. You've just heard an original story from Avenor BL. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, and join us again for the next story.